You're listening to the Ones Ready podcast, a team of Air Force Special Operators forged in combat with over 70 years of combined operational experience, as well as a decade of selection instructor experience. If you're tired of settling and you want to do something you truly believe in, you're in the right place. Now here's your host, former Prep Course Ops Superintendent and current Special Reconnaissance Training Guru, Trent Segmiller.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the team room. You're with Ones Ready, and we have a very special guest today, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. I know you're all going to be excited. We're going to be talking about one of the things that we get a lot of questions about. We talk a lot of crap about you guys not being able to find the right resources. So today, hopefully, we can answer all the questions that we get over and over and over again. And I'm not complaining because I love you all. And let's talk about that for a minute. Gratitude. Thanks y'all for listening. Thanks y'all for subscribing and leave us all the great comments and all the great reviews. So now that that's out of the way, and I feel good about me, and I feel good about you, let's talk about our guest today. It's Lt Col Steve Cooper. He is the commander of the 330th Recruiting Squadron, and they are in charge of recruiting all of the Air Force Special Warfare people out there. So they're the people going out there and finding the right people, helping you along the way, and getting you in the door. So without further ado, sir, welcome to the podcast. If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself a little bit.
Sure. Thanks very much for having me on. Like you said, I'm Lt Col Steve Cooper. I'm a career special tactics officer, current commander of the 330th Recruiting Squadron. So like Trent said, we recruit for all of the special warfare career fields, in particularly the enlisted career fields. So when we say special warfare, I mean 4 career fields: combat control, pararescue, special reconnaissance, and tactical air control party. We also recruit for 2 of our what we call combat support career fields, EOD and our SEER Bubba's survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. I just came here to San Antonio this past August to assume command. I gave up command of the 23rd Special Tactics Squadron, where I was previously as the commander for 2 years. I recently came off deployment as a task force commander there. Awesome opportunity. And I've served at every level below the squadron commander level in special tactics thus far. So happy to be with you guys, and over to you.
Yeah, I just have one question before I hand it off, and that's why was Silver Team the best team that you've ever been on? And
best team ever.
Why did that set up the rest of your career to be amazing?
It's because Silver Team is always the best team, regardless of what squadron you may find yourself. No, it's funny. I went to the 23rd STS after completing the pipeline. So when I went through the combat control pipeline just after I commissioned in 2004. I got to the 23rd in 2006 as a new lieutenant, and I was assigned to Silver Team. I had an old crusty team sergeant. His name was Johnny Beals. He's pretty legendary within the combat control community. But anyway, all of us young, immature lieutenants, senior airmen, and staff sergeants were like, yes, Silver Team is the best. And Johnny Beals would walk out of his office, and you'd hear the door slam against the wall every time he did it. And he's like, I've been on lots of teams. None of them are the best team. You guys. And I didn't understand that. I was like, well, obviously he doesn't know what he's talking about. But now, unfortunately, getting a little bit older, I've been on more than a few teams, and he was right. But always remember what Johnny Beals and the rest of my good senior NCOs schooled into me.
Yeah, we had a lot of good times back in the old England STS team over there, the good old Silver Team trips to Wales, so if you guys aren't picking up on what Trent was kind of throwing down there, is Aaron and I, and back then is Captain Cooper, were on the same team, and we went on a bunch of trips together also, and went on a lot of adventures throughout all of Europe, basically, because we're stationed down there in England. And it was a great time. Obviously, we're all a lot younger and had less responsibility overall, so we could.
I think I'm actually older than CX, but that's fine. That's cool. What else?
Well, but still, we were all. That was like 10 years ago, almost now, that we were running around.
To even think about.
Yeah, it's crazy that it was that long ago. Those were some really good times. A lot of teachable moments, I guess you could say, but. It's good that we're all still in the service. I guess that's one
absolutely
thing after that.
But, we were joking with Colonel Allen. We're like, what's the statute of limitations for these stories? Like how many years ago should these stories have happened before you start telling like intimate details? We all just decided we're like, pass. I don't know how long it is. We'll just pass.
Suffice to say that we all found out what was a really bad place to go, that limit. And then, somewhere up there, we did some good things too, but we found out where we shouldn't go and we all survived. So, besides that, I know, so you've been taking command and you're kind of feeling around, figuring out what's your left and right is as far as how you're going to proceed with this whole thing. And you were talking about when you joined and everything. How have you seen the process evolve since when you came in the Air Force and what you're seeing now for these future Stows and Crows and everyone else coming to the Air Force?
Yeah, sure. Good question. So when I joined the Air Force, and specifically special tactics at the time, there was just one kind of half-hearted website, and really you had to do a lot of digging. I was fortunate. I commissioned out of the Air Force Academy, and I found out about combat control and special tactics or special tactics officers during my second year there. And so I was kind of funneled the right way to talk to the officers who ran that selection down at Hurlburt. And we all kind of knew the application process, but it was kind of like the good old boy system, if you will. So now it is a lot more professionalized. So I mentioned a little bit about the enlisted recruiting that we do. We do also recruit STOs, special tactics officers, Crows, combat rescue officers, and TACPOs, tactical air control party officers. Primarily, we go after enlisted applicants, but we absolutely help all the officer candidates as well. Right now, professionally, we are gold, or our mission is to get non-prior service enlisted accessions into the Air Force, but we absolutely help out the officer candidates. And if they ever want to know where to go or where to look, airforce.com, there's 2 handy quick links right at the top. You can learn all about the given careers, or there's links to find a recruiter. And then you fill in a little bit of information about yourself. And then based on where you are in the country, it'll link you up with a recruiter nearby. And also based on a little bit of the information you put in there, there is an interest item that you can click if you are interested in the special warfare combat support careers. In that case, they will vector you to one of our recruiters. But even if you're not, whatever recruiter you might get vectored to, you can ask for an SW recruiter and they will hand you off. Our squadron is nationwide. We are just under 150 strong. So we have multiple recruiters in every state. We also have multiple developers. So developers are some of our contractors that help us out. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them are former operators. And they will help kind of mentally as well as physically prepare and test candidates before they actually enlist or commission in the Air Force.
Yeah, and just kind of a more, I guess, personal question on what you think about this whole recruiting thing, because I know like social media is a huge game and everything's changed as far as the way that you're recruiting. I know you mentioned the website and everything, but there are a lot of motivated recruiters out there that we've been talking to, and they put their heart and soul into this, and they've, a lot of them have never been operators. Obviously, there's people like Chris Thomas that are pararescuemen, and they're doing also some of the recruiting stuff. What made you want to go into this realm, and what do you see for the future? Because I know, like I said, there's just a ton of motivated individuals out there trying to get people on board. And really, we're sitting here talking about all of our experiences and trying to replace all of us when we get out, because that's going to come probably sooner than we'd like to admit. But what makes you kind of lean forward on this and wanted to take the command of this recruiting squadron?
Sure. So kind of a funny story. I did not volunteer for it, but not because I didn't want it. I just really wasn't aware the squadron existed. During the latter part of my previous command at the 23rd, I was deployed overseas. And I was focused on that deployment. I did know I would have an impending assignment. I was guessing it would be to the Pentagon, because everyone has to go there eventually, or maybe to SOCOM down at MacDill Air Force Base, because I've never served at a staff, and typically that's one of the things that you have to do. and I got a robo email from AFPC, the personnel center that controls where everyone goes in the Air Force, saying, "Congratulations, you've become a recruiter." And I was like, "Well, clearly this is incorrect."
That's my favorite way that anybody finds out about anything is by automated email from your military personnel section. Anytime that you receive news like that, worst news you've ever gotten. I don't care what it is. You never hear like about a bonus or like extra money you're entitled to, or something got fixed in your behalf and you benefited. That's not how they handle that. They only handle the worst news by automated email.
Like,
well, I'll say it was definitely not the worst news by any means. It was unexpected. But I linked up with my group commander, so one echelon above the squadron. He confirmed it. And so when I found out about it, I wanted to learn everything I could about recruiting, because I know a little bit about special operations, a little bit about the Air Force, but not so much about recruiting. So I started reaching out to the 330th. I also reached out to a bunch of my peers at combat operations units, because I want to know what they care about and what they think will be valuable for young people. And then I want to learn a little bit about recruiting, because I want to know the essentially the core mission. I know there's a lot of sales culture in recruiting. And that's kind of hard for some of the operators to hear, because we don't want to necessarily sell someone something. We want them to want it. But there is good tactics and strategy, in particular to marketing. If you would ask a lot of Air Force folks, what is pararescue, what is combat control, even within the Air Force, a lot of them couldn't tell you. So you look at the civilian population.
Yeah, that's hit or miss.
Yeah, with a lot of millennials and younger with 10-second attention spans, they're just not going to know. So I wanted to take advantage of that. How can we get the name out there? What can we do? Type of a thing. So it was good news for me, because it keeps me kind of mentally sharp. It's something I've never done before. It's certainly a new challenge. We like some of the other services have trouble meeting our requirements for numbers of people. What we won't do is sacrifice quality for quantity. But what we have to do is we have to get the brand out there, brand awareness first. And then once we kind of have a good base for that, like we have with special warfare now, keep promoting it, but also attract people, attract talent, and let them know what the standards are, so that hopefully they can exceed them, use our developers in order to best prepare them to lower our attrition rate. Again, not lowering it because we're making things easier, but we're better preparing a given applicant for what they're about to get into. Does that kind of capture everything?
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what I was going for there. And yeah, it's really hard for anybody to say like we're trying to sell anything like that. We're really, actually, the reason why we started this was because we had such awesome experiences. Obviously, with a lot of us, we've worked together before and everything, and just it's completely changed our life and helped us evolve into the person that we are right now. Without our careers that we had before, we wouldn't be the people we are. And I'm super appreciative, and I'm sure all of us, we're super appreciative for those experiences that we've been able to have. So we don't want to sell anything to you guys. We want to tell you guys and show you this opportunity that's in front of you, so we can grow you guys and be better than we ever were. So as far as, future plans and other things that you're going to be doing, because, the old thing was recruiters are going to slap a poster up in your high school, stand by, have a little session or whatever in their recruiting office, and hopefully someone stops by and does that kind of stuff. Are there any new future plans that you're kind of seeing as far as the evolution of social media, all that other stuff, to try and help out with recruiting efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. Always try to see the positive in things. So obviously COVID is a huge constraint right now. We don't necessarily have the historical access that we're used to schools, particularly in person. So it's forced us to kind of innovate and see how else we can meet mission. And so we do a lot in the digital marketing realm. I'll go into that in just a bit. We've also, when I first got to the squadron, I didn't want to make a whole lot of changes right up front. I wanted to see kind of what, standard operating procedures were, how successful it was or wasn't. And one thing I've noticed is that the squadron has done some amazing, incredible things since it stood up in late 2017. But our numbers weren't increasing to the rate that we needed them to increase. And so it's a kind of a multifactorial problem, but marketing is one of those factors. So as I look at it, if we continue to do the same thing that we've always done, we're probably not going to see progress. Like, we got to constantly change and evolve, just like technology does, just like Google and Amazon and all those great civilian companies do. So we just had a marketing strategy meeting where we kind of explored what's working for us, what's maybe not so beneficial, and kind of changed some things up. So in terms of digital marketing, what I'm talking about there is putting content on YouTube, that sort of thing, putting advertisements out there. We're able to, sometimes we can capture if someone likes or shows interest in, say, outdoor sports, mountaineering, that sort of thing. And we can legally show them or display content or banners and things of that nature. Additionally, we're exploring some new partnerships, not all of which are solidified, but not only to generate leads for us, so generate applicants, but also to impact key influencers. And when I say influencers, I mean like parents, teachers, educators, people that are going to have impact in young folks' lives. As an older guy now coming into a younger squadron, my marketers tell me, Facebook is for parents and Instagram is for kids. And some of my marketers are really young, fresh out of college, which is super helpful because they know all of that, and I don't necessarily do. So
that's outstanding. That's well, I guess I have a kind of a what came first, the chicken or the egg sort of thing here. So one of the new things that you have been coming up with since the 330th became its own squadron back in 2017, or since that time, is the specific AFSPECWAR recruiters. Like, no kidding, there's an entire program, the Special Operations Recruiting Program. Let's talk a little bit about that, because that was a big move that we had. I mean, we didn't have it when I first got in the Air Force. And then as soon as I got kind of accustomed to it, to be like, oh, it would make sense to have this person be specifically selected or specifically trained for this duty. I was like, oh, that's really intuitive. I can't believe it didn't exist. So was that part of the way that you're changing up your marketing to go maybe in more like a direct fashion, or was that just something that was also happening at the same time?
Yeah, great question. So when the 330th stood up, they put a special tactics officer as the commander. They gave him some senior enlisted leaders, and they said, go figure it out. So they kind of built the airplane in flight. But they thought, hey, so all our given recruiters are from various backgrounds. We have guys in maintenance, or that used to be in maintenance, fuel, security forces, you name it. And they said, hey, it would be great to have operators or support folks from these career fields that we represent to best tell the story, to show up at various events, to speak based on personal experience, share some stories about themselves or their teammates, that sort of thing. So it was kind of a combination of an ask from the recruiting service, the Air Force Recruiting Service, and a combination of the AFSPECWAR community wanting to feed into the process, because recruiting is one of the most important things we do. If recruiting doesn't happen, the rest of the pipeline and the rest of the combat operations units, it doesn't matter if we don't get our recruiting right. Obviously, the unit was formed in late 17. We didn't have a focused effort on it. We weren't meeting the numbers and the quality that we wanted. Attrition rates were kind of atrocious. And so they, unity of effort, kind of a mantra there, and unity of command, kind of get one echelon or one entity to focus on the hard problem. And I'll say it's been pretty successful. There's always room for improvement, but it's been very successful. Even COVID aside, we're doing some pretty amazing things. And we met our mission or our target numbers for the first time this first quarter of the fiscal year since the unit stood up.
Ooh, get it.
It's pretty incredible. And
that's a good one.
All of those kids met all the medical standards. They passed our physical test that you have to pass. They didn't just pass it one random time. They also passed it shortly before actually enlisting or commissioning, to ensure that we're sending quality candidates that are physically ready close to what we call their ship date. So when they actually leave for the Air Force. So kind of doing that last minute quality control for the Air Force.
Man, that is absolutely outstanding. Congratulations, sir. That's no small feat. I know to the people that aren't really like the inside baseball of knowing what recruiting numbers and actually meeting your goal for the year and getting to that magical number. That's a big deal. So kudos to you. I know you guys, my time in and out of Kirtland, I spent a lot of time in and out of San Antonio and watching that stuff as well. And I was actually just back at Kirtland, seeing the family down in Albuquerque for a little bit of leave, but saw Jake Groves there. Jake is a beret wearing. He is now a recruiter out there. He's another Silver Team alumnus.
Oh, Grizz.
Old Grizzle Bear. And we already mentioned, Chris before, but we actually have beret wearers that are inside of that program and actively recruiting now, right?
Yeah, we sure do. So with the exception of SEER, all of the career fields we recruit for are represented. So we actually have a combat controller in our headquarters element that is a liaison to one of our operational wings. He kind of sets up different events for us, different training opportunities, kind of helps get the recruiters who haven't done much operational. It gets them kind of firsthand experience, but is also opportunities for our applicants. And then we have combat controllers, pararescuemen, TAC-P, special reconnaissance, and EOD recruiters out there doing the actual mission itself. So actually actively recruiting, but also we find they make a lot of money for us, so to speak, at different events, whether it's a speaking engagement, whether it's like the upcoming Daytona 500, to be out there to represent, to look a little bit different, maybe not for the sake of looking different, but for the sake of like, hey, that's an attention grabber. Why is he wearing a different color hat? Let me ask him a question type of a thing. We get a lot of utility out of that. And then also they're pretty useful for demonstrations. We just had, for example, an EOD demonstration of some of the robots that they have right outside of our headquarters here at San Antonio. We brought some of the high school kids just adjacent to us across the parking lot over. So just things of that nature. But yes, all of our career fields are represented. And even though we don't have any SEER recruiters right now, we do have a liaison that hooks us up with events, and we are definitely tied into their pipeline. I talked to their wing commander that kind of controls their pipeline. I talk to him on a monthly basis to make sure we're getting him what he needs. But also kind of getting some up-to-date information from them as well. And we likely will have SEER recruiters here in the near future.
Nice. What are some of the challenges that you're facing? Like, what are those big rocks that are in front of you that you're like, man, if I was king for a day, or if I could just make this happen, I would make this problem go away. What are you really concerned with?
So like I said before, COVID certainly is challenging to us. Though I would say just after Christmas and New Year's is the hardest time of the year to recruit. We have a very generous budget that the recruiting service gives us. It's difficult to execute it in the COVID environment, though. There's restrictions on where we can travel, how many of us can travel. I'll say the one thing that is, or one of the few things that is within our control is training. We were blessed to get approved to be manned at 100%. Very few units in the military are actually manned at 100%. Higher headquarters thinks our mission is so important that we are one of the very few that will be manned at that level. But because of that, a lot of our recruiters are new and they're in training status right now. So our effort is to train our new guys so that later on down the road, new guys and girls, I should say, later on down the road, they'll be operating at full capacity, and we'll be bringing in the quality and quantity required. So I would say COVID, because of logistics, I would say not as a complaint, just as something to note that a lot of our unit is new and undergoing training right now. But I hear the vaccine is rolling out. Always try to keep positive. And we've got a lot of experience
keep it going.
To be able to train up our young folks. That's one of the best parts, like create your replacements. You're only in a position for so long. Keeps me young doing that, as well as kind of training with our applicants when I get a chance. I feel like I'm strong and as fast as I've ever been, but it takes so much longer to warm up and to
and to recover. It takes you a little while.
Well, as good once as I ever was, but that recovery time is killer.
That's a beast right there. Yeah.
Want to do hills with a weighted rope? Yeah, let's do it. Next day.
But not tomorrow.
Why did I do that? Why did I do that? Yeah. 2 days after that, you just hate your life.
Just one time. So the recruiters, so we have specialized recruiters, and I think you were talking about this a little bit. what kind of training do they go through? So if I know we're talking about getting people in the door, but if I'm a recruiter out there, like, why would I want to be an AFSPECWAR recruiter? Like, what are some of the perks?
Sure. So all of our recruiters go through like the base recruiter course that is at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio. So regardless of where you end up, you go through that and you learn the 7 mission critical tasks of recruiting. And then in addition, that is a specialized process. Like, you have to apply and be accepted based on your records and performance in the Air Force. And then you also garner special duty pay, or incentive pay, I should say, for being a recruiter, which is pretty nice. Always like to add to the paycheck if you can. Some incentives for being a special warfare recruiter. So you get, if you don't come already from the special warfare combat support community, you get exposure to a lot of things that you would never have had exposure to. So case in point, we have had the opportunity for some of our recruiters to do tandem jumps. So they are strapped to a jump master, skilled parachutist, and get to jump out of an airplane. We've had training events where we'll take them out to a live range for some close air support training and some crew serve weapons training. So essentially shooting machine guns, getting to talk to aircraft, telling them where to drop live ordnance, and seeing a 500-pound piece of ordnance explode 1,000 meters from your own position. That may sound like a long way away, but it's not. And you can physically see that shockwave head from the explosion towards your direction. Like, it's pretty incredible. Especially if you've never experienced anything like that before. And you get to learn a lot of the history and heritage at our training events. You get to learn, we never forget those who have fallen in combat, and we get to teach their stories. We get to teach a lot of the stories from our heroes and our folks that are recognized at the Medal of Honor level. In the case of John Chapman, the Air Force Cross and Silver Star recipients that we have, which are numerous. And that way, like, it not only motivates us, but when we talk to applicants and they ask, what separates you from the other services? What makes you so special? Like, it's very easy to tell them about how Zach Reiner received the Air Force Cross, not because he's some highly experienced senior NCO in combat. He was awarded that actually for actions in Afghanistan when he was a senior airman on his first rotation as a JTAC after taking a round of the chest, or a couple of rounds to the chest plate and one through the thigh, and was credited with saving his whole team off the side of a mountain in pretty heinous conditions. Like, things like that, they motivate me. I'm passionate about it, and it gets our applicants motivated as well. I could tell 1,000 stories like that. Double Silver Star recipients like Sean Harvell. I could go on and on, but I'll save it for the sake of time.
No, it's awesome. I mean, I just wanted to know, because I know that the community is amazing, and it's something we talk about all the time. And like, I don't want to keep going over like why we do what we do as well, but there's so much goodness there that you want to get it out. And so I got one more question about becoming a recruiter, because Jared's not here. Is there like a height requirement if Chief wanted to come over and be a recruiter for you?
No height requirement to be a recruiter. He's made it this far. I'm sure I could do a waiver or whatever's required to get him over here.
Right.
Oh, I love it. I love when Peach can't get on, because it's just a straight savagery every single time.
I almost feel bad when he's not here, but I get over it. So one of the reasons I mentioned in the intro, we get a lot of questions over and over and over again about like, hey, how do I get into Air Force Special Warfare? Who do I contact? And you mentioned airforce.com. I just wanted to say it again out loud. That is fairly easy to find. And then the Instagram, and then now YouTube. So like, how far into the digital domain are we going? And is there anything that people out there can do to help you out? If they're watching this right now and they want to push the message and help out a little bit, like where do they go and how can they help us?
Sure. So, like we both said, airforce.com, and there's 2 quick links. They're right up front. It's easy. Find a recruiter or learn about careers. And then also another website that is very helpful that we push to all of our applicants is afswdev.com. So AF Alpha Fox, SW Sierra Whiskey, Dev is in development, DEV.com. So our applicants go to that website for prescribed workouts. They go to that website to see what the standards are. They go to see proper form for a given exercise. There's a lot of nutrition insight on there as well. And we do it for I'll say the average American. So nutrition on a budget, like, is one of their links on there. So you don't have to make a whole lot of money to be able to work out and to eat right. And the pass test you don't have to have a gym to pass a pass test. You do have to have the ability to swim, whether that's in a pool, lake, ocean, what have you. But you can do pull-ups on a tree, you can do push-ups in your backyard, and you can run wherever there's ground. So you don't have to have a whole lot of money to be in our business, and that's important for a lot of our propense youth out there to know. But AFSW Dev, and then the Aim High app. So you can get that off the App Store or wherever you get your apps. Aim High. That's just essentially another link to the Air Force. You can have it on your phone. I have it on mine. And it will link you to AFSW Dev. It'll link you to airforce.com. It'll link you to your recruiter. It's just a handy piece of kit. I like to be able to get on a given applicant's phone, especially not that we solely recruit just from high school or like recent graduates. We have a lot of older candidates or applicants as well, some with college experience, just some with life experience out in the workforce. But everyone is on their phone almost all the time. People may not have a computer or a tablet, but everyone has a phone. So I like technology to be there. So Aim High app, highly recommend it. Especially for the influencers, a parent can show it to a kid, teacher, or what have you.
So along the pool training, because we've been getting this question a lot. So a lot of guys have pools that are closed down right now with the recruiting thing going on, and I'm sure that you have received this question, or at least you've discussed it and how this is going to go forward. So for all those guys that are listening out there and training, or their pools closed, that kind of thing, are you still expecting day one 500 meter or 1500 meter for them to be able to swim, do water con, all that kind of stuff? What should they expect or train for if their pool is shut down?
Sure, good question. Yeah, that's affecting a large portion of the country right now. We certainly understand that. Don't let it deter you. If you're listening to the podcast, don't quit. Focus on what you can control. You can't control necessarily if you have access to a pool or not. The Special Warfare Training Wing understands that. I talk with them every week. In terms of the expectations, I don't want to speak for the training wing, but the kind of mantra both them and we have is, we would rather have you as part of our Air Force than just floundering out there waiting on a pool to open or close. Like, we can teach someone to swim. We can teach someone to hold their breath. We can teach someone proper technique. We would rather have them where we can control their diet in a positive way. We can make sure people are getting sleep, that sort of thing. So don't let it deter you. Focus on what you can control. A lot of swimming is cardio, and there are some substitutes. And if you would go to AFSW Dev, there might be an article or two on how to get better in the pool if you don't have access to one. Different exercises, different techniques, and things that you can do.
Awesome. Yeah, I just still wanted to address that. And I also have a blog up on howtobepj.com if you guys want to go check that one out as well. So a couple different thoughts, but I think it's spot on as far as what people should be doing. You know, we can't put our life on hold forever. We don't know what is going to happen, but one thing is for sure, that we still need people that are going to go and be willing to go down range and, take care of the mission. We can't continue to stop because people are like us are eventually going to get out of the Air Force. And we need people to replace us and do the jobs that we are doing.
Yeah,
so
just to be completely upfront, like, we have processed applicants that weren't able to swim for like the past 6 months. So it has happened, and they have been successful. So don't let it stop you. That's just one of many challenges that you'll face, but don't let a pool closure deter you. There is never a perfect time to enlist. There is never a perfect time to commission or go through the pipeline. If you're waiting on that perfect time, if I can just do this, if I could just finish this or that, like, just do it. You won't regret it. I guarantee you. No one says, man, that PJ career was horrible, or I should have never been a combat control. Like, no one said,
I should have never done
just
that.
do it. Like, it's hard, and it should be hard. And most things in life that you have to achieve are hard, but they're all worth it. So I am 6'3", like 195. When I went through, I was the same height and like 145, soaking wet. And I thought, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, but I'm going to make them tell me no. And I don't know why, but they never told me no. Like, I on this train for as long as it's going, and I have zero regrets. Just do it, and just pull the trigger and get after it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty hard for to think what specifically made me jump over the ledge, and pretty much there's no coming back once you're done and you enter this realm. You're just like, all right, let's go for it. And it is a little bit scary, I guess, for some of those guys that are thinking about doing that. But yeah, it's 100% worth it. And like I said, it's made us into the people that we are today. And we just keep on pushing and pushing, and it's 100% worth it. So as far as other things that you're seeing from candidates that maybe they should have fixed before they came in, or fixed before they showed up on your door, do you see any common mistakes from other candidates? Like maybe they got surgery or something before, or especially eye surgery. I know that's a huge topic that we always get questions about. Any other mistakes you see from candidates?
Yeah, sure. Good question. So in terms of the physical preparedness, just showing up, like it's no secret what the form is for a given exercise. So go on AFSW Dev, ask your recruiter. Don't rely on your buddy who's not in the Air Force. Get it from a professional, so you show up knowing the exact standard and what the form is. So you can do your best, and that's just one less thing you have to think about. In terms of medical standards, yeah, you're right. There's some of the things that'll get an applicant. So once you start the process with a recruiter, be fully transparent with what your intentions are medically. Like eye surgery, you can process having had eye surgery in the past, but if you decide to get it and you're on short final towards enlistment or commissioning, that is likely a no-go. So any medical procedures or any medications, like be completely upfront and do that before any of that happens, so that you can know if that'll affect your status or not. That was a good question you had, Brian. And I'll say the third one is just what we were talking about. Like, you know what? I just need a couple more months to prepare. Like if you meet the standards, life will always get in the way. Just do it. You had kind of rhetorically asked, why any of us did it in the past. The reason I did it was because of the people. So I mentioned I commissioned out of the Air Force Academy. I did really well physically and militarily, but not so well scholastically. I graduated by the skin of my teeth out of that place, and I'm glad I did graduate, and I stuck with it. But when I went through some of the selection programs there, and I saw the determination and the teamwork and the camaraderie that those people had, I was like, yes, this is exactly who I want to be with. I don't necessarily want to nerd out with the chemists and scientists in the library or the lab.
The power nerds. I'd rather hang out with the bros over here. They seem like they're having a better time.
Yeah. So I would say it's the people. Like when you look back at things, no one cares what kind of building you were in or what kind of vehicle you drove. You care about the people that you serve with. So it was definitely the people. Some of my best friends, almost all of my best friends, are in the AFSPECWAR community, or were at one point.
Absolutely. So last question, then I'll hand it over to Aaron. So as far as you being the commander of the recruiting squadron, if you had a Lego, basically like a Lego man, you can put together the optimal spec warfare candidate. I know this is kind of a loaded question, but what would you do as far as their background? Like the guy, he wrestled, he was a swimmer, he ran cross country, he played football, captain of the team. He's great at public speaking. And then in addition to that, got all straight A's or scored a 90, or, what would that look like as far as the person, maybe external stuff, and then also like internally? Obviously they have to have integrity and all that other stuff. But what should guys be working on to become the optimal candidate?
Yeah, thanks. So I don't care if you've wrestled. I don't care if you're not good at ball sports. I care that
the people need black and white answers. You have to give them the answer or it's not going to be good enough. Listen, we've been doing this for a year, sir. We try to answer everything as intellectually honestly as we possibly can. And people are still like, all right, but seriously, what do you guys do if you're not deployed? What do you do day to day at the unit? It doesn't matter how many times. So I can't wait to hear this answer. It's going to be great.
No, it all starts with attitude. It's one of the few things that we can control in life, attitude. So you might as well have a good one, and you might as well have a no quit attitude. No one can make you quit or stop doing what you're doing except for you. You're the only one that can ring the bell or raise your hand or say, I quit. And we want the antithesis of that. I want someone who's humble. There is always going to be someone bigger, faster, and stronger, or that can make you tap or what have you. Just be humble and try to be the best you can. There's no perfect operator. All of us have our flaws. There's no perfect background. So many of these podcasts, not you guys, of course, but
of course,
total type A personality. Everyone lifts weights. No one runs anymore. Like, none of that is true. I hate that. I am not a type A personality. We have all sorts, and we need all sorts. I think Admiral McCraven is a well-documented introvert, in fact. And in the open source, you can read he's a Democrat. Obviously, we have a lot of conservatives in special warfare across the services. So just goes to show you, like, there's no cookie cutter mold, nor should there be, because you risk groupthink. You risk a lot of uncertainty and kind of negative things that can happen if you're all the same and come from the same backgrounds. We have kids who came from wealth, kids who came from nothing, some with some advanced academics behind them, some with just a GED or high school grad. But it all starts with attitude. You do have to be physically tough, but know that your mind can take you a whole lot farther than your body physically can. And that maybe you thought you could go. And just someone who is a quick study and genuinely wants to learn. There's a lot to learn in our career fields, whether it's trauma medicine, extrication, infiltration techniques, parachuting, scuba diving, close air support, programming radios. Like, there's a lot, but it's all fun, and I can't recommend it enough. But it all starts with attitude. Like, if you are an applicant and your recruiter is having a mock PT test, or he's having a DEP call, a delayed enlistment processing call, like, you got to show up. You got to show that you're serious and that you this is what you want. Or even if you can't, maybe you have a job commitment, at least communicate with them so that they know that you are serious. But there's no cookie cutter background. Not everyone has the same opportunities, and we certainly understand that, but we care that you have grit, that you're not going to quit, and you have a good attitude. There's a lot of uncertain things out there, but just control what you can control and take it one event at a time. There are going to be some long days, long nights. Just, man, if you can get through lunch, all right? This radio class, all right? So
I got some bad news for everybody. It doesn't stop there in the pipeline. Like, it sounded like you were just describing your week at work, sir. Like, you're not gonna get lunch today. Maybe you'll get there to that time, but you're gonna have to, like, shovel food in your mouth, like reading emails, sitting at your desk, because you don't have time to actually go somewhere. So, I mean, it does never stop. And I feel the same. You were talking just now, and I'm just like, wow, that's what I need to do to get through my day of work too, is like knock down my 5-meter target, show up, make sure you're there, like the basics, show up on time with something to write with, something to write on, and be in the right uniform. And don't let anybody ask, hey, where's Aaron right now? We're supposed to start in 2 minutes. He's not here, So there are some pretty big leadership challenges for you as you try to, like, manage, like you said in the beginning of the podcast, you're spread nationwide. The 330th is spread out throughout the entire nation. Add COVID on top of that, add some other things, some other challenges that you've had. What are the big challenges you guys are facing as an organization at the 330th?
Yeah, so we are 150 strong, so 150 folks in the unit, but we are spread across just over 80 locations now. And so some of the challenges are logistics. Some of the challenges are people feeling isolated because we haven't been able to travel and see each other like we would outside of a COVID environment. Other challenges are how to effectively communicate in that type of setup. So I read James Mattis's book, our former Secretary of Defense. Call sign Chaos is the title of it, and he warns against technology and kind of overusing it and appearing omniscient. So I don't, the common theme I get from a lot of especially younger folks are, man, I'm zoomed out. You had 4 Zooms today. So anytime we're going to have a virtual get together or something like that, like there's got to be a purpose and an end state to that meeting. Otherwise, let's not have it because everybody's busy and no one has more time than anybody else. It's their most valuable commodity. And then like I really, especially as a commander, I try to pay attention to what I focus on. A lot of things are important, but I want to focus on the things that only a commander can affect and positively influence. So if it's like some random, standard or something I get sent that's just not, maybe not, shouldn't come from a commander. I'm not trying to sound pompous, but I want like communication from me to be powerful and meaningful. So maybe that goes to the first sergeant or the ops chief or something like that. I want to focus on only the things that I can positively affect at like the strategic or operational level, and solve other things at the lowest level possible, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. And I can hear it transferring over, all the way down. We do have people that are active duty that listen to the podcast, and people that are getting ready to come in, they're going to face their leadership challenges as well. And I hope that they can hear like one of the, the challenges that you face is like only put your energy towards something you can actually affect. And we talked about that on a podcast we had, a couple of days ago about leadership. We just said, hey, you don't need to engage every single time. Sometimes the best thing you can do is actually not do anything. It's just hold that input, let the boys figure it out. The boys and girls, let them figure it out on their own. If you have a small correction to give at the end, that's your prerogative as the man. But sometimes what you can do is you can just go, y'all need to figure this out. You know what my standards are. You know what my guidance and intents are. So make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. If you have solid commander's intent, they take that and run with it. In fact, we just had an issue where a lot of our recruiters weren't doing something that they needed to do. I went on a really long run. It was about an hour. It was fast, super fast.
Super fast. I bet it did not go over 5 minutes a mile, did it, sir? No, you were just a nice, easy pace, a nice, easy CX pace.
Yeah, I didn't time it, but if I had, it would have been fast. But I just used it as, time to think about that and some other challenges. And I came up with like a half a dozen solutions, and I hadn't even turned the first corner. And I'm like, what am I doing? And I just thought of a really effective flight chief that we have. So one of our master sergeants, super talented. And I'm like, that guy turned his flight around. So one echelon below the squadron level, because they weren't doing so well. And when he got there, he turned that sucker around. I'm like, that guy knows something about change management. Maybe he can do this. It will come from him. And so it'll create some buy-in from the squadron. Gave it to him. What do you know? He had a better idea than all 6 of my ideas combined. So yeah, trust your people and solve things at a lower level if you can.
Right. Well, and here's the real where the rubber meets the road, because there's always got to be a call to action, right? Like you can't just say swipe up. You have to have a swipe up button. No big deal. It's an Instagram hack for you. But what can we on the active duty side, what can we do to help you get after some of those challenges? Like what can we do from, not only here in the team room with the Ones Ready podcast, but man, if guys are in, what can we do to actually support this? Because it really does help the entire force. Like the recruiting squadron should get most of the thrust, because if we don't produce those numbers from your end, we're never going to have people to graduate from whatever pipeline.
Yeah, great question. So I think it's on the operational units a little bit, but also on us a little bit to educate. And so knowing the newest terminology or lingo, if you will be super helpful. So whether an applicant or a prospect is interested in combat control, pararescue, or any given career field, if you're interested in one of the 4 special warfare career fields, you will come in as a special warfare applicant, or SWOE-V. What that means is Special Warfare Operator Enlistment, and then the V stands for vectoring, meaning after you go through the preparatory course after basic military training, based on your performance, based on how well you board and based on the needs of the Air Force, you will get vectored toward a given career field. And so while it's not a given that, if you perform well and you want to go pararescue, that you'll get pararescue. We can't promise anything. Anyone that goes throwing around promises, like, give them a second look. But we can promise that it is an equitable process, and that the senior leaders, both officers and enlisted that chair those boards, like, they think really hard because they're about to affect someone's life in a major way. Regardless, all of the career fields are incredible. They're all great opportunities. We all work together at the units within the Air Force, and it's SWOE. That's some of the common terminology. 9 Tango 500 is the specific AFSC, or the career field identifier. And then for the ops guys, kind of check your emotions at the door. There's a lot of passion and emotion behind what color beret you wear, what badge is on your chest.
Got to be careful about those different color berets, sir.
Yeah.
It's a land
rabbit trail, but the Major General Thomas, so the recruiting service commander, came to us and he's like, "Man, what's a couple things I could do for you guys?" And one of them, I said, and I couldn't believe I was saying it because I used to be not passionate but emotional, like immature, emotional about what color hat I wore and what was on my chest. And I said, I don't care if it's a beret color, a beret flash, or a patch, but I just want something that unites all of these career fields. Because if you go to AFSPECWAR and you see a trident, oh, that's a SEAL. You know what a SEAL does: direct action, special reconnaissance with a maritime flavor. If you see a green beret, oh, that's a special forces operator. He does foreign internal defense and unconventional warfare. It doesn't matter. Like, they don't parse it out, or, oh, but I'm an 18 Alpha or I'm an 18 Bravo. Like, those of course exist, but they're special forces guys first. I think that's a really healthy culture that they have, and something that we should kind of strive to professionally emulate as well. The Air Force is known for being a bit tribal. You have your aviators, and even amongst aviators, your rotary wing guys, your pointy nose fighter guys. If you ask an airman what he does, he'll probably tell you what career field. You guys know this. If you ask a Marine what he does or she does, they'll tell you, I'm a Marine. So I think check in a little bit of your tribalism and emotions at the door. We should do whatever is best for the greater good. And so whether, a new beret color comes out, a flash, a patch, whatever it is, like, man, get on board. Know that people just didn't think that up in some dark room at the basement of the Pentagon. Like, a lot of thought went behind that.
Although it might have happened in a basement in the Pentagon. The location's not important, guys. Don't focus on that.
I think it's by Aaron. No, a lot. Like, I don't care what it is. I just want something identifiable. So when I go up to some 18-year-old on his phone who has a 10-second attention span, I can talk about special warfare, and I don't have to list off the 6 career fields that we recruit for. It just makes brand awareness and telling the story a bit easier, therefore recruiting a bit easier, and we feed the combat ops units a higher quality candidate.
I think that's so important. I know that's something that we cover here all the time. If you stay in long enough, we all do the same basic things. We shoot, move, communicate, jump out of planes, and all that other stuff. But like, one of the things about our podcast is we're all the flavors are here. Minus the tack piece. For some reason, they didn't want to, jump on the social media campaign. But
it was mostly technological. They weren't allowed to be like super mad about stuff, so they were like, "No, I'm out, dude. It's either all rage or nothing."
We tried to record one, and he actually smashed his laptop. But anyway. But you know what I mean? We all play in the same arena. We all do the same things. And so I think it's important to see them, for people to see us, getting along, talking about our shared experiences and Air Force Special Warfare as a whole. But coming off that, that's just my rant. What's the coolest thing you've been able to do, sir, as a recruiter, like event-wise? I know you guys are at NASCAR a lot and the UFC, and you all have like a kind of a bond. What's the coolest thing you've been able to do so far?
That's a really good question. Kind of a tough one too. Because of COVID, we haven't been able to do a lot of the things that we normally would. But I'll say I'll say two things. One is with our applicants, so not yet enlisted or commissioned hopefuls. I was out there and I did a workout with them, and then I did a past physical abilities and stamina test with them. So like our kind of initial physical gateway. And I smoked all of them but one on the run. And it's not to like sound pompous or arrogant, but
I run so fast.
but
look how fast I am.
I care about it because it is good and effective to lead from the front. I told all those kids like, hey man, I am pushing 40 years old. Like you guys got to step it up. And they're all like, holy man, years old. We do have to
holy
step it
cow.
up. But I was like, hey, it's not because I'm some gifted athlete or I come from a great genetic pedigree. It's because I have a little bit of life experience. I know not
really
to start
does.
out my 3 mile at my 100-meter sprint pace. It's because I know some good techniques, which I was able to later help them out with during the workout. So that was cool. And while I was doing that, I got to tell some of the Zach Reiner stories, some of the Sean Harvell stories, Ivan Ruiz, etc. So that was really cool because there weren't, we didn't shoot any guns, we didn't blow up anything, but I was influencing some young people and showing them, hopefully a good example. So that was really cool. And then I'll be a little bit vague about this, but like one of our NCOs, he was kind of in a bad way, and I was able to get him some help really late at night. I was super tired. I'd been up for a while, but it was definitely worth it. It's what I'm here for. Anybody needs my help, I'm going to help them. And I got him some help, and he's still with us, still recruiting, and I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, those are super awesome stories because, a lot of people would say, in that previous job, all you see is the social media stuff and, people out at events and they're doing Daytona 500, they're doing the Spartan races, they're doing all that stuff. And that's what people see. But the most important things and the most impactful things that you're going to keep with you are the relationships that you've had and the ways that you've been able to affect other people's lives, or they've affected you because of the opportunities that you've been given to help them out versus, another person that's just doing whatever other job off the street. But yeah, that's super important to realize that, like you said before, the whole reason that we're doing this is because of the team and to make sure that we have those individuals that really take this stuff to heart and go all in with their heart and soul to make sure that the mission is executed to the best of their abilities and their team is taken care of. And that's all we could ask for in a person. So I want to ask, we always ask this typical question, well, 2 typical questions. Is when should a person contact a recruiter if they're thinking about joining? So I'll let you answer that one real quick first, since you're in charge of the recruiting squadron.
Yeah, it's very easy. As soon as you think about joining.
All right. Just want to make sure we're on the same page. Yeah,
it's still not going to be good enough.
We've asked.
Not going to be good enough, sir.
But what time of day? I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. It's 7 p.m.
What do you do if you're not deployed?
Yeah. So it's different for each recruiter based on the time zone. So we cover 6 different time zones. But as soon as you get put in touch with a actual physical recruiter, he'll give you his business hours. We are pretty excellent teammates. So even if you contact that person outside of business hours, he's probably going to help you out. If you contact him at 2 a.m. and it's not an emergency, she's probably going to be a little bit upset. Just some common courtesy. We don't need advanced degrees to figure that out. Just some common courtesy, but they'll give you their business hours. And if it's just outside of that, I bet you they'll help you out.
Nice. Just want to make sure we're still on the same page and we're still giving out the right info directly from the recruiting squadron commander's mouth. Contact a recruiter when you're interested in being recruited.
To a recruiter. Go to airforce.com.
All right. And then the last question is, obviously, like we were talking about, we have a lot of different people from different backgrounds, and they're just trying to make their way up and be successful at this thing. So it would be, if you can kind of bottle up all your experience and other things that you've seen people be successful, what advice would you give to a person to be successful at this career field, at selection, and throughout their career?
Yeah, good question. So I always remember Master Sergeant Bo Bollinger. He actually retired as a Chief Master Sergeant later on, but he was a Master Sergeant when I went through combat control school. And he was pretty hard-nosed instructor, but he would always get on people that he saw being kind of selfish and not helping out their buddy. And he got into us one morning, and it was one of the worst mornings at CCS. But he said, "Man, you should be jumping through your backside to help everybody out." And so the next morning, like, you saw a bunch of kids running around like with a camouflage top on, but they hadn't yet put their pants on, and they're helping each other pack rucks. And he walks in there and he's like, "What are you guys doing?" And they're like, "We're helping each other out." And he's like, "Why? Put some pants on." But where I'm going with this my funny story is when you start worrying about your teammates, you start forgetting about how much it sucks and how much pain you are in and all the things that are imperfect in your life because you're focusing on other people. That's worked for me personally. Sometimes I didn't even realize that I was doing it. I know it's worked for all of my teammates. I would say that, like, worry about your buddies, like help a brother or help a sister out, like help them get through it. And cadre are going to see that. Like, you can't fake who you are. We can spot the fakes pretty easy. Don't try to fake your personality.
Well, that's not that hard. We can see that a mile away there, Spotlight Ranger.
Yeah, but just try to help each other out. Take what the cadres say at face value. So if something's an individual event, then do your best, but eventually you are going to complete it. And there's nothing saying that you can't go back and help your buddy out. So just always try to be helping your teammates out and focus on that, and you will be less worried about, how thirsty you are, how hungry you are, how hurt you are. That would be top advice for me.
Yeah, and I think that's super important. I think we said in a couple of different podcasts, if you're sitting on the side of the gun all ready to do 10-ups and you're sitting there thinking about how much your chest hurts, how much you want to breathe, how tired your shoulders are because you're in the push-up position and, thinking about yourself in your pain cave, and you're not thinking about your team, that's when you're going to quit. It's when those people are looking to the left and right and making sure their buddies are okay and they're taking care of them, motivating each other, that those are the guys that are going to make it through, and not only in selection, but the rest of life too, because life is not an individual event, it is a team event throughout the rest of your life. You're going to have to deal with people, and that's really what makes us the person that we are or end up becoming. If you stay a recluse and you don't end up wanting to work together with other people, then you end up, staying at the same level that you were. It's being around that team environment that makes you be more successful and become the person, that next level of person that you want to be. Because like we've said before, we always want to hang around those people that are more successful than us, and we get things. I've learned so much from just, talking on these podcasts to Aaron, Trent, Peach, and all the other guests that we've had on, all these successful people that, make me up my game. And I think it's just a common thing within our community, like you were talking about before, just to go over some of that stuff, is we get so many different people from different areas of life, walks of life. A person that came straight off the streets and they had nothing can have so much more grit and heart. But then on the other side of the coin, we have a person on the same team that's coming from some kind of like Dartmouth or Harvard or whatever, or maybe a professional athlete, and they're just super awesome at another thing. So, I guess I wasn't really good at anything. So
Mike Loria is going to be so mad at you for saying Dartmouth. I cannot wait. I'm going to text him immediately when we get off here and we'll be like, guess what was brought up as like the number one Silver Spoon college on the East Coast?
Yeah, you mean
Dartmouth.
You mean Dr. Mike Loria?
Dr. Michael.
Yeah. Anyway, so we get these people on every
his residency yet. Let's not give him too much.
Okay, right. He's still a candidate. He's still a doctor candidate.
Two quick stories. I promise I'll be quick while Brian's on that train of thought. So you're talking about being a good teammate. I remember distinctly Stowe selection. It was some heinous hour in the morning. The sun wasn't up, and you mentioned being on the gunnel on the side of a pool. And so our backs were to the pool. I had a snorkel in my mouth, and I knew I wasn't going to quit, but I was not in a good mental state. And one of my buddies just kind of elbows me. It was a really serious time of the selection. He's like, "Dude, you have something gross hanging from your nose." I'm like, "What? Who cares?"
Who cares? I'm dying here. Can you leave me alone?
And he just kept on it, and I started laughing. I'm like, this isn't so bad. And then another time where that was super helpful, that kind of logic was I went through a training process for a unit in North Carolina. One of our instructors had lived a large part of his life in New Zealand. And so he had a really thick accent, and he's really old too, super experienced, combat decorated vet. And so one of our academic classes, we're trying to teach like current history, like current tactics in Afghanistan, what's going on in Iraq right now, how are we employing air-to-ground munitions, what type of employment methods, etc. And then he turns around to us, he's like, "Oi, who's here been to Bosnia?" we're looking at each other, we're like, what were we, 10, 12, 13 years old? And so we were a couple weeks later, we were going through our first night live fire CQB, close quarters battle. So live bullets coming out of a gun in close quarters. It can be dangerous if you're not trained properly, or even if you are, you got to be on your game when you do something like that. So we're all stacked up outside. It's pitch black out. We're under NVGs. And everyone's kind of amped, a little bit nervous. Not only do you have to prosecute your target or targets, but you're also going to you get graded. You get graded doing everything. You get graded on how you walk to lunch. And everyone's just super nervous. I'm like, we got to do something here. And it's about to be go time, and we're about to breach the door. And I just let out a quick, "Oi, who's been to Bosnia?" And everyone just kind of chuckles and like, okay, let's do this. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, and that's the super important thing is obviously you get into this zone where you're just like, your heart rate's up and you're like, okay, it's going to happen. And then someone just like snaps you out of it and you're like, what are you I'm focusing on this right now.
I guess it is still going to happen, but I'm busy trying to like work myself into a frothy lather over here, and you're trying to interrupt me with fun sounds. Like, you leave me alone. Let me be worried. I'm busy being anxious, my guy. Don't make me laugh.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff gets people through that little hump and like, okay, this is going to happen, but we can have fun with it because no matter what, we're going to be here and suffer through it anyway. So might as well enjoy a little slice of it while we can. So yeah, I think that's super important to also throw into your tool bag once things get hard. Just remember that, you're going to suffer through it anyway. So try and make a little bit of fun out of it. So you guys have any last inputs or questions or anything before I wrap it up?
No, sir. Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I learned you need to put your pants on before you help your buddy. That was amazing.
Priorities. All right, one more quick story. It was a nighttime, hey-ho, high altitude, high opening jump. People were nervous, going to get graded on that too. And my buddy Sal, we're just kind of sitting there freezing in the airplane. And he's like, "Hey man, you could be in a comm squadron typing on a computer right now." And I was like, not so nervous anymore. Well, maybe just
fair enough.
Hey, no offense to you comms folks. We absolutely need it. But I would rather personally jump out of airplanes. And then we got to the ground. I'm like, "Sal, that was one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life. We like floated 18 clicks to this drop zone in the middle of nowhere. Have you ever done anything that cool?" He's like, "Well, there was this one time I saved a Marine's life in Afghanistan." I was like, "All right, I'll just pack up my fish."
You know what? Never mind. I shouldn't have asked you anyway. we should keep talking about PowerPoint. F you, Sal.
Anyway, thanks very much for having me on. You guys know where to find me if you ever have any questions. It was great talking to y'all.
Yeah, and so for all the listeners, again, we really appreciate, it's good to see you again. It's been a long time. I mentioned before that I haven't seen you since you were a captain, and we all been kind of doing our own things, but obviously we can still talk about the old days and everything back on Silver Team, back in England, on all those trips that we used to take so long ago that kind of formed the people that we were, and had a lot of growing up to do at that time, but I think some of it's out at least. We still have a lot of growing up to do. And, we really appreciate you coming on to just talk about, and we went into some of the details about what the Recruiting Squadron is. And I think it's really important for a person like the commander of the 330th to be transparent about, hey, this is what we're trying to do. And we want to feel the pulse of like the guy on the ground and figure out what is actually going on, what you guys want, because we don't want to sell something to you guys. We're not trying to sell some kind of product or anything like that. We're trying to actually talk to you guys and give an opportunity for a lifestyle that's going to make you a better person and give you the opportunities to not only, become more self-sufficient and have the opportunity to travel around the world and everything, but also just to level up and be around those people that are like-minded and are going to push you to be better than you ever thought you were going to be. As I always say, push past your perceived limits, because realistically, whenever I joined the military, I had no idea that I was going to be doing any of the stuff that I'm doing now or did before. It's a huge opportunity that you guys have in front of you, and we want to give you guys and show you guys that, to make sure that you know that there's something else out there. You don't have to follow the status quo of whatever your family did or anything. There's always things. You make your own life and you make your own path. You don't even have to follow any of the things that we did. We're just giving you opportunities and figuring out which one would be the right thing for you. So I think that's super important to just go over the recruiting stuff and exactly where we're headed in the direction. Of course, if there's any suggestions or anything that you guys have as far as, things that you'd like to see or events or anything like that, obviously we can pass it up to the recruiting squadron, just let them know that kind of stuff, and hit up your recruiter as soon as you can if you're interested in joining the special operations community for the Air Force. And the most important thing I think of this is that we're not doing any of this for the badges, for any of the fame or awards or any of that kind of stuff. We do it for the guy that's sitting next to us, and they've been sitting next to us since we started, not only in basic training, on the gunnel, in the helicopter, and every other time that we've been with our teammates, because those are the things that are really going to matter. At the end of the day, when we look back on our life, it's the people that we've affected and the way that we've impacted them and the way that they remember us is what's going to count. Nothing else. So make the most out of it, and make sure you go hit up your recruiter. And, also thank you for sharing all the stories with us. It's really important to remember that you have to get out of your own head and think about the team all the time. So again, thank you guys for listening. If you guys have any questions at all ever, you guys can always hit us up at info@onesready.com, and make sure you check out our Instagram, and then all the recruiters that are around the country and around the globe for special warfare. Make sure you hit up your nearest one, and that was airforce.com and AFSW.com, correct?
Yep, AFSW.com.
All right. So make sure you hit up those websites, and we'll be here if you guys have any questions, all right? You guys go out there and reach your breath. Later.
Thanks, sir. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Take care.